Hey, what's up? Welcome to episode 5. Thanks for joining, and I hope that you're doing well. So, I've been thinking about why so many of us have ideas and don't do anything about those ideas. It's like we have them, and then we proceed to bury them in our idea graveyard somewhere with the rest of our ideas that have not quite been realized yet. And here's how it normally goes. We have an experience that maybe sparks something in us, and we get this strong sense of desire. We may want to do something, we may want to get something, or we may want to be a new and improved or a different version of ourselves. For a moment, we're so excited about it. We imagine ourselves with this thing or being this person. We think about it, we dream about it. And all the thoughts and feelings around this imagined change are really positive. We feel so excited and ready with anticipation. And then, poof, just like a bubble, it bursts. And the dream suddenly becomes the enemy. And we tell ourselves, they can do it. And by they, we create this person. Maybe it's someone we know, it's someone we imagine, and we say, oh, Jane can do it. She normally does new things and challenging things, but no, I'm not like that. I call it the other people are special syndrome, as though the other people have this magical powers that allows them to accomplish things, and we just don't have that. We then start listing reasons why we can't do the thing. We literally start to clown our own abilities, basically telling ourselves that we suck, or we don't have the capacity to grow and learn. Or we give ourselves reasons why not to even attempt doing the thing. We literally convince ourselves into believing that doing the thing is some sort of existential threat. Then, inevitably, we start giving ourselves reasons why our current situation, that this situation right here that we're doing, is all we need. It's like we double down for stagnation versus advocating for our own personal growth. We're basically making a case for staying exactly where we are. I've done this process so many times. And sometimes it could happen in a space of seconds or minutes. Other times it's hours or days. But the results are the same, that I'm squeezing the life out of my imagination and its desires. And I'm remaining right where I am, doing the same old stuff day after day. Now, I know this sounds a little bit depressing, but it's not, because I think the real problem is really a skills issue. That we're lacking certain skills when it comes to dreaming and making those dreams a reality. And the way I see it, if it's a skills problem, then we can learn to do it better. We can learn to get good at having ideas, a vision, or a dream, and keeping those ideas and making them real for us and actualizing them. If it's a skill issue, then there's hope. And if we want, we can get really good at making our dreams come to a reality. So, as usual, I have a story to tell. So, when I was growing up, I loved chemistry. And in chemistry, I learned about this thing called activation energy. Now, bear with me, it's all going to come together. So, don't let your eyes glaze over and don't shut me off just yet. So, activation energy is defined as the minimum amount of energy required to get a reaction going. Otherwise, we just have a bunch of chemicals that we've mixed together and they don't really do anything. It's like when you bake a cake, you first put together all the ingredients and you mix it up. But those ingredients won't become a cake unless you add some energy. And the energy we use when baking is heat. But it's not just any amount of energy. There's a minimum amount of energy or heat required to do the work. So, for example, if we mix together all the ingredients of a cake and we leave that bowl of batter on a countertop at room temperature, we know very well that nothing is going to happen because we don't have enough heat. We know that room temperature alone isn't enough heat to bake a cake. But if we put that cake batter in an oven at a specific temperature, that wet, sloppy mixture of eggs and sugar and flour, etc., will forever be transformed. It will turn that thing, that mixture, into what we all know as a cake. I think our ideas are the same way. Our dreams, our desires, they're exactly the same way. We need our own version of activation energy to get them going. And we need to allow them to bake at a certain temperature for them to fully transform. Many of us simply just don't know what it takes to take our dreams from an idea in our heads into motion where it's realized in our lives. We haven't quite figured out the minimum amount of temperature or the minimum set of skills required to get the job going. And what's worse is we have this habit of stopping way too soon before we do. In fact, what we do is an equivalent of looking at the cake batter sitting on the countertop, all wet and sloppy, and thinking that the whole thing has failed to become a cake because we just didn't know that what we needed is heat or our activation energy. They are simple skills that you need to have in order to keep your dream alive and get them into action. And I'm going to share a few today. First is just understand what's happening. You have this idea initially, and you have a series of thoughts that are positive, and they feed this sense of excitement, anticipation, joy, and hope. But the thing that's creating those emotions in you is the way you're thinking. You're thinking positive thoughts about this idea or vision you have. You're seeing yourself in it. And then a kernel of doubt comes, and you start having thoughts that are doubtful. You start psyching yourself out of whatever dream it is you're having or whatever idea you have. You start giving yourself reasons why this can't work. So, in a sense, you're having and saturating your mind with a series of negative thoughts that are feeding this sense of doubt and lack and finding examples of why trying has never worked out for you in the first place. So, you've got to learn to saturate your brain with positive thinking. And I'm not saying delusional thinking, I'm saying saturate your mind with reasons why it can work. At the beginning, you have to actively learn how to keep it alive. You've got to look for evidence for success. It's almost like as if you've got to always be ready to offer your brain a case of why this will work. Because there's something that happens in your brain. It's just our natural mechanism. Our brain is wired for safety. And safety means you do what you know. You do what's familiar, because you've evidence for safety in that regard. You know what you're doing works and you can tolerate it because that's what you're doing. So the very habit of creating a vision and wanting something different, sometimes your brain can take as a threat. And what does it do? It gives you reasons to stay where you are. That's the dynamic that you're fighting with new ideas and new things. That the skill you need to have is to figure out a way to keep your visions alive in you. And the only way you can do it is to keep thinking about things that feed positivity in you, that feed the idea of success. Show your brain examples of how you've been able to be successful in the past. Teach it that if that worked, if I could step up and muster the courage to try new things here, then surely I can step up and muster the courage to try new things for this other thing that I've never experienced before. You've got to create that safety within yourself, that's a skill. And the only way you do it is redirecting your mind every single time it offers you doubt. Say, yeah, I know that's scary. Yes, I know I haven't done that before, but I've done this other thing before. Yes, this will be a first time. Wow, this is exciting to learn something new. Wow, I wonder how that person did it. I'm going to investigate. So you're constantly pulling yourself forward. That's part of the job. Otherwise, your ideas literally will die and you'll retreat to the familiar. And the thing is, many times the familiar doesn't feel good and you want a challenge to do something else. That's why you were seeking and being inspired with something new in the first place. Okay, so that's the first part. Just understand the dynamics of what is happening. That when you have a new idea, you have a job to do in terms of feeding positivity to that idea. You know, athletes do that too. Athletes vision. They sit and have a vision of what they want, right? People have vision boards. You know, they visualize the medal, they visualize going through the motions of a race, they visualize success. That's them feeding and saturating their mind with positive things. Athletes will tell you the moment they start to doubt, it's over. It's no different for you and your dreams. So the next part is building momentum. So you have this dream, you're saturating your mind with positive thoughts to keep that dream alive. But the work doesn't stop there. The whole point of having a vision and having goals or having dreams and desires is so that you actually then make them come to fruition, that you realize them, that you actually achieve them. And you're not going to do that by staying in your head the entire time, thinking really positive thoughts so that you can just keep that dream alive in your mind. You've got to start to do something. And this is where people often make a big but simple mistake. When we dream, the vision is huge, and you have got to take yourself from where you are now to the version of yourself that has realized or created that dream. There's a lot of growth that needs to happen in between, depending on what kind of dream you have. And oftentimes we get overwhelmed by thinking about the final thing and imagining the final thing and not seeing how this version of us can be that. I'll give you an example with weight loss. If you've got 100 or more pounds to lose, thinking about that entire number of 100 is overwhelming. And if we do that, it's so easy to psych yourself out of the initial effort of starting. In fact, you'll belittle 1 pound loss, but 100 pounds of weight loss is done a pound at a time. So how can you belittle the effort required for that 1 pound? You have got to get good at pound one, and then losing pound two, and then losing pound three, all the way to 100. And in that path, you've got to figure out a way to keep yourself motivated, and there are ways to do that. But for now, my talk is about, look, how do you not let your dreams die? And a sure way of letting your dreams die is thinking about your first step in the context of the final outcome and judging your initial efforts against the final outcome, not understanding that it is an entire journey that you need to take. And all the while, you're transforming yourself in small and incremental ways until you eventually get to the thing that you desire. But what is your version of the first pound for whatever it is you're dreaming about? What's that first step? Lots of people talk about that first step. It needs to be big enough to get you off the couch into action, but small enough not to overwhelm you. Respecting your skills right now, and respecting the fact that this is a process of growth. So to build momentum, you've got to take a first step. But to be successful in taking a first step, you've got to take a small step. Take a small step that is not overwhelming, that won't get in the way of you wanting to do it in the first place. If you're trying to become somebody who works out 4 times a week, who lifts heavy weights, you've got to respect where you are right now. Because when you don't, you overdo it. You lift too hard, lift too heavy, run too much, do everything too soon, and then you hurt the next day. And you don't feel like going back to that routine to do it all over again. But if you respect where you are, if you treat yourself with kindness and compassion, you can say, all right, I got a ways to go. I can see that down the road. But what's my first step right now? And how do I take that first step honoring where I am right now? So that's what it means to build momentum and do it in a way that you can actually be successful versus doing it in a way where you're setting yourself up for failure. Okay, so that's it. Don't overcomplicate this thing. I like to keep things really simple. You have a dream. You want to realize that dream. It's a vision of yours. It's an exciting vision that seems to fit within your life and stretch you in ways that you want to be stretched. Then you've got to remember that the thing that keeps you excited and inspired is the way you think about that thing. And your mind will inevitably offer you thoughts that are negative, thoughts that scare you, right? Thoughts that fill you with doubt about your ability to accomplish it because it's new. And your job is to remember to saturate your brain with positive thoughts that keep you moving forward. And then the next part is understand that goals don't happen if they remain in your mind. You've got to figure out a way of giving yourself momentum, like mobilizing yourself to that final place, that destination that you're longing for, that vision that you're having. And the only way to do that is by really taking into account your capacity right now and respecting that. And then figuring out a way to take your first step. And that first step has got to be small enough not to overwhelm you, but big enough so it can move you forward in a meaningful way. I gave that example of 100 pounds, that the way you lose 100 pounds is by thinking about how you lose 1 pound, half a pound, and getting really good at that and doing that again and again and again until you get to 100. That is how goals are done. That if you think about 100 pounds on your very first day, it's overwhelming. And it's also laughable. You didn't gain those 100 pounds overnight. There was a process to that. So this work of keeping your dreams alive is about respecting the process of doing just that. All right, I hope this helps. I hope this inspires you to take a first step or to learn to talk to yourself in a way that keeps those dreams in your mind so that it doesn't have you scurrying away and hiding in the life that's familiar or telling yourself that other people can do it and you can't. This stuff is really doable. You just need to know how. You just need to figure out the set of skills that you need to take you from where you are now to where you want to be. Good luck.